Today, we're going to be seeing what the strongest Asian nation is, but every 5 years, I'm going to be deleting the poorest nation out of all these. 95% of you guys aren't subscribed, so if you want to see more videos like this, which I'll be posting every single day, please subscribe. So basically, all you need to do is you might be the strongest nation, you might have the most land, but you just need to not be the poorest nation out of all these guys. So it'll be really interesting to see what goes on. I mean, India, you guys are kind of getting destroyed right away, and Laos goes down as one of the first deaths so far. Rest in peace to them. But yeah, like look how good Nepal is doing right now. That's kind of insane. You also have a bunch of like European nations over here. So you have like Greece that's technically in this game. I don't know, it's kind of funny in its own right, but it looks like it could be rest in peace to India. No, India does barely survive, but it's so sad to see. Okay, coming up on 5 years, the poorest nation right now is Myanmar, and they're going down to China at the moment, so rest in peace to them. They are the first nation to get deleted. And China's going to take over a lot of that land, but I guess India, Thailand also are going to get some, so it's going to be very interesting to see who kind of comes out on top here. Honestly, an early favorite, I mean, of course, Russia is the biggest nation here, but I think China is in a really good position. Indonesia as well. There's Uzbekistan going down, so rest in peace to them. Also, some of these Saudi, like Middle Eastern nations, like a lot of these could do well. Saudi and some of the other ones. Romania goes down. Rest in peace to Romania. But now we're coming up on 5 years again, and China is going down. China technically is tied with Iran and India, but China is the lowest one on here, and they're the biggest nation, so it is the most interesting to take them out at the moment. Rest in peace. In India themselves might, I mean, they might die themselves to Sri Lanka here. I don't know. Might be kind of tough in their own right, but China going down is going to make this game a lot more interesting. I mean, look at Vietnam, look at Mongolia, look at even North Korea and South Korea and the Philippines here. I didn't even realize Taiwan went down extremely early. But I mean, look at all this extra land from the Chinese. And I guess India barely survived, but I mean, it might not be a long time for India to survive. But the next nation to go down is Iran. So we're taking down basically the strongest nations in Asia right now, like in the modern day. They're both gone, I'd say. I mean, India is definitely the second strongest nation. Japan's still here. Russia's still here technically, but some of the bigger nations in Asia have gone down here in the first couple deletions. So it's going to be very interesting to see if, you know, one of the larger nations does hold on to this game, or if it's going to be a nice random one like Brunei, or I guess that's not Brunei, it's Malaysia, but like the Philippines could win this entire thing. And the Bangladesh becomes a puppet state of Thailand. Okay, that's pretty interesting. Thailand is doing pretty well. I mean, Vietnam's doing well. This kind of Indochina area is doing extremely well. And coming up on 5 years again, it's Afghanistan going down. Rest in peace to you guys. You guys did, you know, solidly well, but also Mongolia is pushing into Russia, which is nice. I mean, Russia is still clearly the biggest nation, still probably in one of the best positions out of anyone, but I just don't really want them to win because they don't really feel like an Asian nation like a lot of these other ones do. Lebanon becomes a puppet of Syria. There's a lot also happening in the Middle East area, but I feel like the most, like the Middle East places probably aren't going to win this entire thing. Pakistan is also doing pretty well, but coming up, the weakest nation right now is India. Oh no, India has no money. Rest in peace to you guys. Now I'd say you only have one out of the strongest like 4 nations right now from Asia, which is Japan. And Japan doesn't seem to be doing that well either. So it is going to be very interesting to see if someone like Nepal or Indonesia or like Sri Lanka does extremely well. I mean, you can see that the Indochina areas have done a lot better because of China's deletion from the game. And I mean, some of these areas have done well. I mean, Kazakhstan looks pretty good. Pakistan looks fine, but coming up on 2055, it's Lebanon. Rest in peace to Lebanon. But yeah, I think doing like the poorest nation is very interesting because you can have some of the strongest nations just somehow having one bad off day and they're just immediately deleted, which is pretty interesting in my opinion. Who is this? Tajikistan is doing like they're solidly surviving, so W to them. And Malaysia is kind of fighting back against Thailand, but there's not really that much going on, so I'm going to speed it up a little bit. We need to get some more deletions real quick. And like Turkey is kind of doing well as well. And coming up, it's Armenia. They were a puppet of Turkey. I don't really think that looks good on modern political climates, but it is what it is. And Philippines is not doing that well. Vietnam is somehow their owner. I don't really understand that, but Vietnam is doing well. Let's look at the next 5 years, see who's the strongest nation. I mean, clearly it is Russia, but okay, we're going to be deleting Syria, but who's the strongest nation? Russia, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Nepal, Vietnam. Okay, pretty interesting. I mean, Russia's clearly still in the best spot. They have the most gold, they have the most land, but I could see a lot of these other nations still doing well. I mean, Japan really is kind of screwed here, where they are one of the strongest nations in real life out of all these people, but they're in a bad position. North Korea became a puppet state of Mongolia. Rest in peace to North Korea's independence. Oh, North Korea goes down. Rest in peace to North Korea in general, because they are now dead. And little Japan versus Russia fight up there. Statistics right now coming up, it's Albania. Albania is not an Asian nation, but it is what it is. I mean, I could just delete all these other nations, but I don't think any of the European nations are going to do anything where they're not really going to influence this entire thing. I would hope. I mean, we'll see, but the UAE is doing pretty well. The Saudis were doing, I would say, pretty well for a while, and now they seem to be doing pretty poorly. Coming up on another year, Indonesia goes down. Wow, Indonesia is a pretty strong nation. They were honestly looking pretty good, but this is going to benefit a lot of Vietnam. Like Vietnam, Thailand, and Malaysia, and potentially Sri Lanka, but we will see. I mean, Malaysia just taking it all. Never mind. I thought it would benefit other people because, like, technically, Thailand had a little connection here, but Malaysia's just taking it all. Vietnam's taking some, but yeah, this is very interesting to see. Just a lot of nations that you wouldn't really expect. I mean, Russia is still doing extremely well, and Sri Lanka, rest in peace to Sri Lanka. So that means a lot more land for Nepal, which, I mean, it's kind of nice. Nepal is a nation that I do want to see do well. I mean, look right now. I mean, Vietnam is also doing well. I'd say Vietnam and Nepal are like two nations I want to see kind of win this entire thing, because they don't feel like the normal, like, Pakistan's winning it all. Russia's winning it all. Like, yeah. Ukraine is now a puppet state of Russia. So Russia is just really continuing to do well. I would just hope that one of these smaller nations down here kind of comes and fights against Russia, because Russia has, look at all these puppet states, just an insane amount. And we're going to see kind of what happens in this next deletion here, but it looks like it will be Saudi Arabia. So the Middle East is going to get a lot more chunky behind one nation. A lot of other places don't look the greatest, but I mean, yeah, Russia is still doing extremely well. They have not done poorly this entire game. I just hope that places like, potentially, honestly, Vietnam, Thailand, they go down next. So then someone else out of this Southeast Asia or just South Asia area is going to start coming up and fighting against Russia. I mean, Russia isn't doing the best now against Kazakhstan and Mongolia, but I just don't want to see them win. Bahrain, you are the poorest country. You are going to say goodbye. Rest in peace to Bahrain. Everyone else seems to be in a relatively good position. And it looks like Russia is doing, honestly, not that well. They could collapse here. And okay. Russia lost a lot of land in that war there. It's going to be very interesting to see how that kind of translates over the next couple of years, because even now they're losing a lot of land to Mongolia. And coming up on the statistics, Russia. Oh my God. Mongolia is going to be deleted. Wow. Russia was very close to being deleted themselves, but Mongolia was the poorest nation, so I had to delete them. Like, I wish I could have deleted Russia there, but that kind of sucks, because even though Russia did lose a lot of land there, they did take a good amount of Mongolia's land. And Mongolia was like one of the few nations that could kind of rival them and compete with them. And coming up on the next time, it is going to be Somalia. We've got African nations here. We've got European nations. We've got Asian nations. But that should kind of shore up some of the Middle Eastern area, where it's like now there's there's not as many players out here, but it's going to be very interesting to see. I just hope Russia is just not doing well, because it just makes me so sad to see that the one nation that was beating Russia just has to get deleted. But coming up on 21-10, it's going to be Oman going down. So another Middle Eastern nation. Middle Eastern's kind of, blobbing out, I'd say. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see. Iraq and the UAE are the strongest nations in the Middle East. And come on, Kazakhstan. You guys are doing well, I would say. You guys are doing well to take some land from Russia. I just hope you can take more and more and more and potentially get their capital. It does not look like that's happening. And it looks like Kazakhstan themselves might be capitulating. But no, it is going to be South Korea going down. So that's honestly really good, because they were a Russian puppet. But Russia is very close to running out of gold, which means that Kazakhstan should be... Oh my God. Russia just seems to get every moment where they seem to be doing bad. They just somehow... Okay, never mind. Ukraine is really pushing against them right now. But I'm saying every moment that Russia seems to be doing bad, they just get the luckiest break and just pull it off. Like right there, even though South Korea died and Kazakhstan was very close to making Russia run out of money, Russia, zero money. Okay, never mind. I was saying Russia was getting the luckiest breaks. Now Russia has a very unlucky break. So that means Kazakhstan, Japan, Vietnam are all going to be taking large swaths of territory. So that's going to be very, very interesting. And Kazakhstan looks like they're not going to push into this extra land. So, I mean, Japan really didn't do anything either. So it's really going to be Vietnam and potentially... Okay, Kazakhstan is taking some, but it's Vietnam and I guess Kazakhstan taking the majority of the land there. And the weakest nation right now is Iraq. So the Middle East just continues to lose nations as time goes on. This is Jordan. So, Jordan is doing solidly well. They should take over a good amount of land. The UAE looks honestly really good at the moment. It's nice to see Russia's finally gone. So basically the majority of the biggest powers in the Asian sphere here are all gone. And it's either going to be like a Nepal win, a Vietnam win, a Kazakhstan win. It's going to be pretty interesting nonetheless. Coming up on 21-30, we do have Thailand going down. Rest in peace to Thailand. They will be destroyed and deleted. It's going to be very... Thailand was doing well for a while, but yeah, they just kind of became Nepal's puppet. And that didn't really work that well in terms of actual fighting. You see, Vietnam here is doing, honestly, extremely well. I would say they're definitely in the first position right now. They're definitely the favorite. If they can just take out Japan, I'd say they pretty much consolidate their territory. And Tajikistan is the poorest nation at the moment. Not the weakest nation. But, I mean, they're probably pretty close to the weakest nation either way. That means a lot more land for Turkmenistan. And Pakistan has been doing, honestly, solid, especially when they've had Nepal on their borders this entire time. But, I mean, I don't know. It's going to be kind of tough to see who comes out on top here. Wow. Turkmenistan just took a lot of Kazakhstan's lands. And Kazakhstan, rest in peace. So that's going to be land for Ukraine. That's going to be land for... a lot of land for Turkmenistan and a lot of land for Vietnam as well. So we will see what kind of happens there, but it looks like Ukraine's making a mad dash. And yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting to see kind of what goes on in the coming years, because I don't really see a leader here, especially as Vietnam does not look that good. And they could be the next nation to go down. We will see. And okay, Vietnam barely survives. They have 167 gold. Kuwait has 0. Turkey has 3. So another Middle Eastern nation going down, kind of solidifying UAE as being the strongest nation out there. But Vietnam barely survives. I mean, that's honestly not a good look for them. So like maybe Vietnam is going to die in the coming years. They might get deleted, especially as they're getting destroyed by Japan right now. It could be, let's see. We will see if Vietnam's on the chopping block. And Vietnam, again, barely survives. They have 0 gold, but Jordan is the one that has technically less gold. They're further down on the list. I could delete both of them, but I've already made the precedent that I only delete the bottom one. And I mean, Vietnam's also getting just destroyed at home by Japan. So it's not like it really matters. as much as I delete Jordan versus Vietnam, because Vietnam has lost a lot of their territory and they could be on the chopping block the next time. So it's going to be very interesting to see if Vietnam does survive the year. But coming up on 2155, yeah, Vietnam, rest in peace. You guys lasted 5 years longer than you potentially should have, but you're still dying nonetheless. And let's speed it up a little bit more. Japan is looking really good. Japan, I was just hating on them all game. They were not doing well, and now they've just found themselves in a pretty good spot. And hopefully, if they just don't lose a lot of their money, they could do even better. And Japan, okay. I gassed you up and you have zero money. So you're not in a good spot. I mean, Nepal, that's going to make them even better. Honestly, they should gobble up a ton of that land. Even Malaysia should take some, but it's basically just going to be Nepal and I guess Ukraine as well, which will be very interesting to see. The fact that Ukraine is even in here as like a European nation is just so funny to see. Coming up on 2165, Turkmenistan, you are the weakest nation so far. That's going to be a lot of land for Ukraine again, potentially Turkey, but a lot of land for Ukraine. That kind of sucks in its own right. I just don't really want Ukraine to win either because they're not an Asian nation. I'd really like to see Nepal win here, but Ukraine has been doing well this entire time, so it is going to be very interesting to see if they can pull it off. Deleting the weakest nation, it's the UAE at the moment, so it's coming down to Turkey, the UAE, Malaysia, Pakistan, and Nepal. And I just hope and pray that Ukraine can go down pretty soon. Ukraine is fighting a lot of wars against a lot of people, though, at the moment. So it will be interesting to see. It also looks like Nepal could be in a pretty poor spot, but Malaysia is going to be the one to go down at the moment. They do have the least amount of gold, but everyone's kind of in a precarious spot. They're all fighting against each other. But this means that Nepal is going to get a lot of land that they necessarily wouldn't have had before. So it's going to be very interesting to see. Also, wait another 10 years before this next battle is going because there's only 4 nations left. I'd rather leave it a little bit longer to see some actual just like takedowns normally. Ukraine does not look good at the moment, though. I mean, basically no one but Nepal looks good. So it'll be very interesting to see. Ukraine looks honestly extremely bad at the moment. But I mean, I guess yeah, everyone but Nepal looks not good at the moment. And the weakest is Ukraine. So Ukraine will be going down. And 10 more years, and then we delete one more nation. This is going to be a 1v1 to see who is the strongest or the richest, I guess, Asian nation. I mean, Nepal looks really good this entire time. They basically look good this entire game. So them winning it all would be kind of nice to see. But I'd also be fine with Pakistan or Turkey winning it. As long as it wasn't Ukraine or Russia, that's all that matters to me. But coming up on year 2200, and Turkey is the weakest nation. So it's going to be a 1v1 between Nepal and Pakistan for it all. They're going to be fighting to the death, seeing who wins it. And I'm going to put on a time lapse and you're going to see the winner. And now officially, Nepal is the strongest nation when you delete the weakest nation in Asia.